you know, today our program is The Sound of Music, and I'm going to turn it over to Bill and to Patrice, and they will explain the book to you and also the music, and we're going to have a wonderful afternoon. Please give them a nice welcome. Bill.
We are delighted to bring this musical to you. I have loved it ever since it came out in the movie. My mother, I think, has loved it since it came out in the play. She probably went and saw it on Broadway. The movie is based on a book by Maria von Trapp. Patrice is our pianist. She is my favorite pianist in the world. It was a tie when my mother was alive.
Oh, gosh.
And she has degrees from Trinity, bachelor's and master's, and she teaches piano at Keystone School. It's kind of a genius school of San Antonio. She went there. And those kids are blessed to have her influence. Patrice will be my musician. We're going to be really focusing on the book. There's not going to be as much singing as we have in the past because the book, the stories of the book are so profound relative to her religion, honoring and celebrating the church seasons, just the way that they lived their lives. And it's also profound in some of the conflicts that they tended to have. I will have Patrice start, and we'll start off with the way the music starts off, except we're not going to be running up and down the mountain, and neither one of us looks like Julie Andrews. The star has come out to tell me it's time to go. But deep in the dark green shadows are voices that urge me to stay. So I pause and I wait and I listen for one more sound, for one more lovely thing that the hills might say. The hills are alive with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. The hills fill my heart with the sound of music. My heart wants to sing every song it hears. My heart wants to beat like the wings of the birds that rise from the lake to the trees. My heart wants to sigh like a chime that flies from a church on a breeze, to laugh like a brook when it trips and falls over stones on its way, to sing through the night like a lark who is learning to pray. I go to the hills when my heart is lonely. I know I will hear what I've heard before. My heart will be blessed with the sound of music, and I'll sing once more. As you might see on your handouts, at the very end, I hope that y'all will sing too. In 1934, Maria von Trapp visited a famous writer in Tyrol. They went up to a quaint chapel on a hill. It had a bell and a rope. She pulled it and said to her hostess, "I wish I could be a writer like you." The hostess asked, "Do you know the story?" "What story?" "The people of this valley have a legend that every 100 years, if someone rings this bell and makes a wish, it will come true." It worked. She wrote the story of the Trapp family singers in 1949, yielding a popular German movie in 1956. Patrice's cousin, Mary Martin, showed it to Rodgers and Hammerstein and had them develop the Sound of Music musical with herself as Maria. They were asked to use much of the Von Trapp's music and add some of their own. No, that's not the way we do it. It opened in November 1959, leading to the blockbuster movie with Julie Andrews in 1965. Maria was an orphan who loved to run wild in the woods and mountains, an atheist who got saved at her first confession ever. So she decided to enter a convent to find the will of God so she could do it. She was also a pistol, as you might have noticed in the movie, who continually whistled, sang, raced up the stairs, slid down the banisters, and jumped the chimneys on the roof. Was being so closed in bad for her health? Maybe she should take a temporary job as a governess for a widower and teach his daughter who had delicate health. How do you solve a problem like Maria? Well, maybe this would do it. How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? Not sure. If you've seen the musical, you know the story, which I will clarify, while, like Paul Harvey liked to say, adding the rest of the story. The musical is about half the book. There's a lot more after that. Soon she found herself in a big gray mansion with a 30-foot Austrian flag and a war hero, Captain Georg von Trapp. "I see you are looking at my flag." He was tall and impeccably groomed, unlike the old sea wolf she had imagined. He did indeed call his children with the ship's whistle. It takes too long to call them by name. 4 girls and 2 boys appear, not rushing and giggling, but quietly marching down the stairs in blue sailor suits. "Grüß Gott, Fräulein," in unison with perfect bows. Maria shoved back her hat, and it tumbled to the floor. The ice was broken amidst the giggling. After introducing each, "Which one is my student?" With a shadow in his eyes, "Little Maria has poor health and is upstairs." Afterwards, "How do you like them?" "Oh, they're also very well behaved." "Not always," he said with a twinkle. Turning serious, he told her of the 26 nurses, governesses, and teachers they had gone through. "How long will you stay?" "Maria, 9 months." She could see her beloved Untersberg mountain from her window and felt better by remembering, "I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from which cometh my help." She happily made a calendar of 250 days of her banishment, crossing out the first day. Getting used to 20 different persons between family, the help, and a maze of huge house was bewildering. Meanwhile, after 3 days, the captain went hunting. The Baroness, who lived there, invited Maria to her room of ruffles and cookies and candies, answering 100 whys and wherefores. At the end, "But why does the captain not look happy with all those precious children, marvelous home, and wealth?" The sad story. Captain von Trapp grew up on the seashores in a naval family. Decorated in warfare at 18, he quickly realized the value of submarines and soon commanded one of the first. The beautiful young lady who christened it was the daughter of the plant's owner and the rich granddaughter of the torpedo's inventor. And eventually, they married. In World War I, he became a popular and beloved hero. After losing the war, Austria was stripped of its seacoast, and he was a captain without a ship in the prime of his life. Eventually, after 7 children, his wife died of scarlet fever, and they all moved into this estate with, as I said, rotating health and governesses. He plans to marry the Princess Yvonne to be a new mother for his 7 little ones. Oh, dear Lord, make it so. Maria began by teaching Marie and little Johanna, who couldn't handle long walks to the school. The 12 subjects included religion, grammar, composition, literature, history, geography, physics, botany, French, geometry, algebra, and Latin. Sounds like fun. Marie barely missed piano lessons. She hated missing them. So she was started on one of the unused violins. Johanna didn't want to study at all, but this beautiful little Snow White liked Maria very much, while baby Martina was standoffish, but listened to everything. The children could not play in the woods or the beautiful garden. It might mess up their sailor suits. One rainy Sunday afternoon, they noticed her guitar. She played several songs, but all they knew was Silent Night. They sang very prettily. The second time, Maria sang the second voice. The third time, she asked who might sing second voice while Maria sang third voice. That started a landslide, and before long, they had a growing list. At times, the Baroness would catch them on the rug or table. Oh no! This musical discovery is reflected of their singing in the Do-Re-Mi song in the movie. It's called solfege. Your handout is about that. They have hand signals because, and thanks to Guido d'Arezzo, the musical staff was invented. On the back of it, you see a plaque about him. You can use hand signals to sing a song. And it's in the olden days, people would have to sing a song and everybody would have to go and listen to it. You would sing it and they'd repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and hopefully they remembered it when they went somewhere. So Guido d'Arezzo came up with a musical staff of keeping track of the notes. And they had, for instance, in this musical, the Do-Re-Mi song. So people could conduct, they would learn what the symbols meant. They probably had to learn the actual pitch and sing do, a deer, a female deer, re, a drop of golden sun, mi, a name I call myself, fa, a long, long way to run, so, a needle pulling thread, la, a note to follow, so, ti, a drink with jam and bread, which would bring you back to do. And people would do that. If you didn't know music, you'd learn these 7 hand signals and be able to lead music and sing it along. I like music, but I mostly play by ear. Patrice loves music. She's not crazy about playing by ear, except sometimes she likes mine. As they prepared for an Austrian Christmas, Maria had each child make a surprise for each brother and sister. That's a lot of work. After workshop time, they would sing together. The furniture was too far apart, and the Baroness was away, so they sank on the thick carpet. Agatha played Maria's guitar, while young Maria on the violin as they sang In Dulci Jubilo in 3 parts. Suddenly the door opened. It was the captain, caught on the floor. Maria jumped up. I'm so sorry, Captain, but he loved it, and settled on the carpet. So you've learned a new song. Do it again. The children echoed, "A new song? Just one?" He made Maria join them on the carpet. She was willing to do that. "Don't you think this is more gemütlich?" He took the violin and played a soft descant on one of their ballads. He sighed, "I didn't think I would ever play again." "Easter's coming. Where's the Advent wreath?" "The what?" This book outlines detailed celebrations of all the holidays of the church year that they integrated into their life. No Santa Claus. In Austria, each child writes a letter to the Christ child on the first Sunday of Advent to make known your secret wishes and make a personal promise. Hers was, "Dear Christ child, it would make my life so much easier if you would bring each child here in the house a pair of nailed boots, a Wetterfleck, and a pair of wool mittens. I myself do not need anything, as I soon shall go back to Nürnberg Abbey." Princess Yvonne arrives. "Wonderful! I can see the future mother of my darling children." Upon meeting Maria, "Well, well, the wonder girl of whom I've heard so much." At one point, Hedwig exclaims how thrilled she is with her new ski pants, "So I can do whatever the boys do." "But my dear, a decent young lady doesn't wear pants." Oops. Later, the princess confronts Maria. "Don't you know that the captain is in love with you?" "What?" "I'll leave right away." "Oh no, things will continue as always. There's no reason to run away." "But how does everything go on?" "Why, exactly as before. In a few weeks, the captain and I will be engaged, and you will stay with the children until after our marriage. On our wedding day, you must give a nice little party for them here." "Won't they be at the wedding?" "Oh no, what a commotion." "When we return from our summer wedding, we will return in time to send all the children off to school, where they can learn to stop being such roughnecks." "But why even marry if you send the children away from home?" I asked in consternation. "My goodness, did you think I was marrying the children? What a queer little youngster you are." Maria packs to leave, and the princess brings a priest to convince her to stay with the plan. "The captain feels affection toward you because of the children. You must stay as the princess wants. It is the will of God." Now she's stuck. That was always what Maria wanted to find. We should talk about that another time. Maria, "Okay, I will stay until the 30th of June. It is really hard. No more joy in Mudville. The mighty Maria has struck out." What next? Baroness Matilda breaks her leg, and Maria is asked to run the entire household staff. She reads books on it and tries, but finally asks the captain to get engaged right away. "Am I doing you a favor by that?" When she leaves, he presents her a present. The Golden Book for Housewives. Write this down. A guide for the year with 500 recipes and 1,000 advices. A Christmas present idea? Continuing to depart from the movie's plot, after 3 weeks of hello postcards that are very meaningless, she asks, "And when will you get engaged?" He writes back, "I wish I could see your eyes when you read the announcement of my engagement." Enraged, she wrote, "My eyes are none of your business. I thought you were a man and kept your word. I'm sorry I was mistaken." Hot with anger, she ran out and posted it registered. As Georg is about to pop the question, saying, "Yvonne, the butler brings a silver tray with a letter on it. Sorry, sir, but I thought it must be important. It's a registered letter." He excuses himself to read it. Maybe somebody's sick. He returns to tell Yvonne that he cannot marry her. "I lost somebody else. You let me wait too long." You can imagine what the telegraph wire said about that and why he probably had to marry the governess. He immediately returned home, ensconced himself in his private quarters to write his memoirs.
She checked her calendar. Only 13 more days of exile, and started spring cleaning the next day. While cleaning a chandelier, she saw the 3 youngest children knock on his door. They emerged and yelled, "Father doesn't know whether you like him at all." "Why, of course I like him," absent-mindedly cleaning the chandelier. That evening, while she arranged the last flower vases, he came in and said, with a new resonant tone in his voice, "That was awfully nice of you." "What was?" "Why, didn't you send word to me through the children that you accepted the offer? I mean, that you want to marry me?" Scissors and flowers dropped to the floor. "That I want to marry you?" "Well, yes. The children came to me this morning and say they had a council among themselves, and the only way to keep you with us would be that I marry you. I said to them that I would love to, but I didn't think you liked me. They ran over to you and came back in a flash crying that you said, 'Yes, I do.' Aren't we engaged now?" "But I'm supposed to go back to the convent, and I can't do both at the same time." Saddened, he said, "Is that your very last word? Is there absolutely no hope?" Immediately she started for the abbey. "What are you doing here in the middle of the week?" Maria told the mistress of novices the whole incident. "If you tell me now I'm to enter the abbey, then the will of God is clear, and I cannot marry him." Frau Raffaella left without a word, and returned much later to send her to the Reverend Mother. "Since you clearly came here to learn the will of God at this most important moment in your life, we convened and prayed to the Holy Ghost. It became clear to us that it is the will of God that you marry the captain and become a good mother to his children." In shock, Maria sat reading the words on the Reverend Mother's ring, "God's will hath no why." Tearfully she asked, "What does God want of we now, Reverend Mother?" "He wants you to serve him well where he needs you most, and serve him wholeheartedly and cheerfully." On her long walk home by the moonless dark river, the psalm came to her, "The dark waters of the bitterness of exile threaten to drown me." She tried to sneak in, and there was the captain saying, "Well, and?" She blubbered through her tears, "They said I have to marry you," and found a big hug in his open arms. The next morning, the kids were thrilled. Soon thereafter, he left for the entire summer, to return 2 weeks before the wedding, lest tongues should wag. Did the nuns really sing? "How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you grab a cloud and pin it down?" If they didn't sing it, I bet they thought it. After Christmas, the long winter evenings were spent with homework quickly done for the to-do art crafts, while Maria read from the classics, fairy tales, legend, historic novels and biographies, prose and poetry, and then singing practice, rounds to teach, polyphonic singing that taught, mind your own business and sing your own part. Don't worry about what your neighbor is singing. Is that how they do it up in choir? This was derivative of her years after World War I with the Catholic youth movement, where dozens of boys and girls ran around together singing folk tunes and with copied classical works by unknown old masters. As you can imagine, with this family, birthday season became very busy. And Maria describes Austrian holiday traditions from all the church calendar, many worth trying out ourselves here. On Faschingsdienstag, that's like their Mardi Gras, they had their own party. Maria, in a beautiful gown, was accosted by an obnoxious, smarmy sailor covered with tattoos who shouldn't have been there, trying to whisper sweet nothings in her ear, who she eventually realized was the captain. The festival summer was upon them, and everybody wanted to come visit. That winter came Georg's sixth daughter, Rosemarie. On her birth, the magical spell was broken when he said, Like every other newborn baby, like a little monkey, ups and downs. As the Nazis pressured Austria, a friend's bank was in distress. Georg moved his money from his English bank to help out. When that bank ruptured, he lost it all. Maria resolved it by deciding they weren't really rich before, they just had a lot of money. What to do? They asked the church if they could develop a chapel and for a priest to come live with them, make the house available for seminary students to rent. This seems to be the beginning of the God will provide era. It's an era we should always look for. The house was now full of young professionals and intellectuals, providing more fun and stimulation than ever. The priest, Father Vossner, heard them singing together and made some suggestions, conducted them through a motet, and began training them. Before long, they became the Trapp family choir. The great Lottie Lehman, a famous opera singer, hoping to rent a room from them, heard them sing. Thrilled, she insisted that they had to share their gift and entered them in a music festival for the next day. They stumbled up on stage and sang 3 pieces, they can't remember which, slunk back to the audience, and were shocked to hear, "The first prize is awarded to the Trapp family singers." Georg had already left in despair. The only way to put his mind at rest was to promise never to do that again. But a few days later, Salzburg called for them to sing on the radio. Well, that's not exactly the same to sing in a studio, so they went. Well, Kurt von Schuschnigg, Chancellor of the Austrian Republic, happened to be listening to them sing Bach's Hymn of Thanksgiving and wrote them a letter to join a concert on the same bill as the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. Do they have to accept it? It went well. Then, after that, they were invited to sing at all the Salzburg festivals and afterwards were barraged with invitations from France, Holland, Belgium, England, Italy, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. They put them all in a drawer and later I realized they were expected to come to all of them. Father Vossner researched unpublished classical pieces by the masters. He also found much used old-time instruments, so the family acquired and learned to play the recorder, the viola da gamba, spinet, early flutes, string quartet, and piano. Their evening hobby now became rehearsals. They sang for kings and queens and the Pope, learning that music is an international language. God is so good. He is so good to us all. We must forget all quarreling in the world and be happy together. Let us love one another as He loves us. Music, what a powerful instrument, what a mighty weapon. But, March 11, 1938, on the radio, Austrian Chancellor Schuschnigg was saying, "I am yielding to force. My Austria, God bless you," followed by the national anthem. But Hitler had promised not to do that. So what? Their butler Hans came in and announced he was already a member of the Nazi Party. The bells rang all over Salzburg. By force, the Nazis were marching in. After school, the children reported red flags filled the town. All of it, specified size and number. Soon they were visited by the flag Gestapo. Little Rosemary said, at school they were taught that Jesus was a naughty Jewish boy who ran away from his parents. Lordie's teacher called Maria in because Lordie wouldn't sing the national anthem. When asked why, she said in front of the class that her father had said he'd put ground glass in his tea or finish his life on a dung heap before he would ever sing that song. Remember this. Watch what you say at home. Lordie was told never to tell what was said at home, or father might go to the concentration camp. And again to school, when she would not do the Heil Hitler. She also repeated those instructions about father and the concentration camp to the teacher. The times are getting close. At an art gallery, a very poor art, it was a Nazi show. All were to salute the central piece of Hitler in armor on horseback. They left disgusted and went to a restaurant next door for frankfurters and beer. The waiter asked, "Have you seen him?" It was Hitler, the Messiah of the Third Reich, at the next table. A loud, boorish drunk. Ho, 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 ha. They could stand it for 40 minutes. On the way home, Georg found a letter he'd put in his pocket, an invitation to captain a huge modern submarine. Evidently in the Adriatic and later in the Mediterranean. His dream of a lifetime, but not for them, not now. That means war. I can't run a submarine for the Nazis. Soon they were summoned to sing for Hitler's birthday party. Family council. This will be our third no to the Nazis. Children, do we stay and keep all our property and lose our spiritual goods? Faith and honor, or do we leave? Time to go. The escape was much more dramatic in the movie. Being coordinated with a musical festival and sneaking off into the night while the audience applauded. But they did casually go mountain climbing. In their regular clothes in order not to make anyone suspicious. And they waited for 6 weeks in Italy from a concert promoter in America to board a ship. The American Farmer. This was the climb every mountain part. This ends the basic story of the play and the movie. Now, as Paul Harvey would say, for the rest of the story. And they decided to seek ye first the kingdom of God and his justice, and all these things will be added unto you. Part 2. The day after they left, the border was closed and nobody could leave Austria anymore. Luckily, is it luck? His pension had been paid in Italy, meaning it was still accessible to pay for accommodations on arrival. A happy coincidence? Do we all believe in coincidence? It was God's guidance. It seemed thereafter that every good or troublesome occurrence taught faith and miraculous resolution. 6 weeks later, their trip to America was the American Farmer. With only 70 passengers, you get to know everybody in the 11-day trip. To afford it, an agent in America set up a concert tour for them. Perfectly pleasant, except for the 3 days of stormy seasickness suffered by everybody except Maria, who was pregnant. Time to learn English. To learn English in 24 hours, you just need to learn 1 hour every 24th. Okay, pencil and pad in hand. Please, was ist dat? A watch. A watch, she wrote. And fat, a ring. A ring. A knife, a spoon. Gentlemen, how do you do? Thank you very much. Who what? Who in? Who where? They found American people very kind, generous, and helpful. Dumped out at the Hotel Wellington on 7th Avenue and 55th Street with their 56 pieces of luggage, clothes, instruments in cases, costume trunks, etc. She spelled out the word drugstore. Aha, we're in the hotel with a drugstore. I will never get lost in New York City. After her first excursion to get Georg's hat ironed, she was totally lost, had to ask a cop, where is the hotel with a drugstore in it? She probably saw dozens of drugstores and dozens of hotels on the way, and he helped her get back. Macy's blew their minds. The escalator terrified them. Close your eyes, lady, and take a step. Finally, at the agent's office, the concert tour would start in a week. But how would she hide the next baby on the way? A seamstress friend had divided padding size 1, 2, and 3 to make her just look plump. They found a low-cost laundry that boiled everything, So everything came out in various shades of blue. Further English studies. Once she learned the derivations of a word, she would extrapolate it to other words. Freeze to frozen. Okay, squeeze to squozen. Once you sneeze, you are snozen. If she ever thought too much, she was a thunkard. She learned slang too. With the Reverend Mother of a small church was getting too nervous, Maria told her, "Keep your shirt on," and she did. On the way out of a banquet, she met the bishop at the door. They each motioned the other to go first until she finally knew what to say. "Please, Bishop, scram!" While in Roanoke, Virginia, the radio had frightening news about New York City. Invasion. Oh no, our little girls are in the Bronx. Following an awful night, the morning papers informed them about Orson Welles' radio Martian invasion. After Christmas, baby Barbara finally arrived, late as hoped. Not as twins as possibly expected, but a 10-pound plus baby boy named Johannes Georg. He cried all the time because he was already past basic baby food. They learned to find beauty in being poor because one discovered such riches in one's neighbor's heart. And there is so much genuine love all around. Like a training class in faith, it seemed every time they would be out of resources, all the doors seemed closed. Before they could despair, God would open a window for another concert or available place to stay. Their previous contract was shortened due to the baby's timing. They got another to start in September, but a letter came from the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service. Their application for extension had been denied. Leave the U.S. by March 4th. They spent almost all their money on third-class boat tickets, but what to do when they got there? A year ago, a Danish impresario offered them an introductory tour of Scandinavia, Copenhagen, Oslo, Stockholm. More money went for a cable. While waiting, they had to dissolve all their household goods and utensils to venture to a new land. Made her think of some holy kings 2,000 years ago seeking a mysterious infant in a faraway land. Surely their friends had said, "I hope you don't regret it." God had showed them the way. March 1st, the Trapps discussed the same story. They promised to imitate that faith and patience. Could God have that star appear again? The next day it did. In a cable, their first concert would be March 12 in Copenhagen. On the Normandy, a noble boat with welcoming crew and passengers, they were viewed as performing stars for the cruise. Gone from March to October, when they returned to America, they learned their greatest Bible lesson: be not solicitous, meaning don't worry. That's for heathens. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. That half year taught them that lesson. 12 people and a baby had 6 concerts, which would provide them 3 weeks of living. What to eat and drink next? Threatening war clouds and not knowing a soul in Scandinavia or any of the other languages made every country restrict their time to only give their concerts. God did not map out their upcoming schedules. Each time they almost ran out of money and time, another opportunity would arise. Lessons in faith. When they had to leave Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, Holland invited them for a month. A quick visit to Austria by the women. It was home no more. Then on to Sweden for August and September. Each concert may generate the next. Don't worry became their mantra. In September, war broke out. Back home to America just before permission to stay expired. Arriving in Brooklyn, August 7th, 1939, they met with immigration. When asked, "What time do you intend to spend in America?" Instead of 6 weeks, like my visa says, Maria was too excited. She blurted, "Oh, I am so glad to be here. I want never to leave again." Equals instant trip to Ellis Island with no doorknob on your side of the prison door. A nice, warm Indian summer in October, but the heat was scheduled to be turned on, so they sweltered in the windowless confinement. Nothing else to do, so they opened their instruments and sang. They learned if America doesn't take you in, you get a free ride back to Europe on the same boat. If they don't allow you, you just keep riding for free. They were questioned intensely but not believed. The day before the ship returned to Sweden, they were freed. Their friends had approached congressmen and senators. The fellow interned prisoners celebrated their joy with them. with applause, and they got to sail back to land, feeling like Noah, being able to finally make landfall. They concertized, but something was wrong. They'd rehearse even more conscientiously. The halls were large, but the crowds were small, all over the country. Eventually, their manager sent them a last check saying they were not meant for America. Your art is too subtle. People will never understand it. Go back to where you belong. The Normandy sails in 3 days. If our music is our mission, well, they called a new manager, Mr. Shang. Same story. Maria sent them home and asked, "Why, Mr. Copernicus, not take us?" He said, "The Baroness has absolutely no sex appeal. They will never be an attraction." "Oh, thank you." Whereupon she immediately went to Scribner's and looked through their music books but found nothing about sexy. She went back and confronted Mr. Shang. "Why you not take us?" He said, "You're great musicians, but the program, a 45-minute Bach piece, is not for the general audiences, and the recorders sound like a calliope. But worst of all is your appearance. Can't you get decent clothes? Long skirts, high necks, hair parted in the middle, braids, boy shoes. Get pretty, put some red on your face and lips." She couldn't argue in English, slammed his thick book on the desk. "I thinked America free country. Is not." She stomped out. The secretary brought her back. "Okay, consider a year deal to win over the American audience. Could you spend maybe $5,000 in advance for publicity?" They had $250. That night they told their best supporters, who covered the amount. The next day Mr. Shang accepted and said they need to coin a different image. Instead of the Trapp family choir, I will manage the Trapp family singers. A sweet neighbor lady named Betty welcomed them to the neighborhood, and they realized they needed some Americanization. "Betty, who are those two guys over there?" "Maria, that's very poor English." "Isn't guy just another word for gentleman?" "Okay." "And do never say okay, that's vulgar." "Okay, Betty." No more gee whiz, golly Moses, jeepers creepers, gosh, shucks, boy oh boy, or jump in the lake, at least while Betty was around. She also trained Maria on the value of money. Don't say buck. That's vulgar. It consists of 20 nickels. You are poor now, don't you see? She had never seen that. The tears flowed. Another lesson from scratch is that no work, as long as it is decent, is a disgrace. The next time she heard, "You are poor," now Maria answered, "No, we are not poor. We just don't have any money." On May, they had $50 in the bank. Maria remembered all the handmade presents from years past, so they started making and selling handicrafts. They learned the true value of work. It honors you and it makes you free. Mr. Shang got them a concert at a Catholic college. He praised the sister afterwards. "In all my life, I have never heard such perfect diction." Boy, he knew how to schmooze. That got them a return date. He urged them to relax more. "There's something you are lacking between you and the audience, but I trust that if you try hard, you will find it." Back in Denver, they gave another highbrow concert at the college. Maria felt sorry for the less sophisticated listeners and decided to do a yodeler as an encore. That's yodeling. You have to take a deep breath and hold out for long phrases at a time. A fly was circling her head as the next breath time arrived and flew in with it, spoiling the rest of her lead yodeler's yodeling. She forgot the distinguished audience and simply admitted, "What never happened to me before has happened now. I swallowed a fly." After the laughing finally stopped, she tried to offer another encore and confused the words and offered to sing them a chemise. That sounded like a bad pun and set them laughing again. The missing link was found, one of my favorites, humor. They traveled all over the country and Europe for years, often making the bus turn around to get out and meet real Indians. They resisted forces that threatened to break them up, like romance and marriage. The draft board took Rupert and Werner. Their manager got into the Army. They saw a farm in Stowe, Vermont on a huge hill that looked like their beloved Austria at winter's end and managed to buy it. The next day, the neighbors awoke them to announce the spring sap is running, so suddenly they were making maple syrup. Skunks settled under the house. That was no problem, unless you dropped a pan or a ladle. An open chicken coop became a chapel. Meanwhile, the government was going to tear down the CCC camp, Civilian Conservation Corps, and Maria said, "Why, we could have sing weeks there, like when I was a child in Austria. 15 or 100 folks get together and learn music making and folk dancing. Why, that sounds like the wholesome recreation that could bolster our state with the kind of folks we want. You can get a lease." They fixed it up and offered 10-day courses to folks all over for singing, instruments, and folk dancing. I think they still do. After the war, they got a letter about how Austria had suffered. Could they help? The von Trapp Family Austrian Relief Incorporated was started to send clothing and food to Austria. Every concert stop, they'd first start at the newspaper. In the end, Georg's health was forever affected by his duty on the submarine. Its poor ventilation and smoke surely caused lung disease in many sailors. In summer of '47, Maria sent out a letter to their friends. The memorable year. It seemed like Job's trials and tribulations finally came to visit. People thought, for the Trapps, everything turns out great. They lived so close, never a fight or misunderstanding, a storybook family. They finally had their trials in spades. In May, a fresh grave on the hill. In June, Rosemary disappeared, found 3 days later, wandering across a field. She stopped singing. Meanwhile, in June, little Johannes woke up at 5 a.m. with a 104-degree fever. Thank God it was rheumatic fever and not polio. Then Hedwig developed a severe backache. A summer camp fell flat. A car and pickup truck were backing towards each other, and one hit Lorley and broke a couple of ribs. September, another baby that didn't survive. Maria fell ill during the next concert tour. After 7 fat years, it felt like 7 lean years compressed into 10 months. The big day arrived in May. After 5 years of waiting, they could be sworn in as citizens, Austrians with the Italians, Croatians, Syrians, English, Irish, and Polish. After Armistice Day, the boys visited Salzburg. Their old home had been confiscated as Himmler's headquarters, with the chapel as a beer parlor, while Father Wassner's old room became Hitler's quarters when he visited. Gruesome stories were told. During one of Hitler's visits, he heard a soldier humming a Russian folk melody outside the window. Hitler screamed, "It is beneath the dignity of a German soldier even to hum a Russian folk song," and had him shot on the spot. They couldn't go back and had their house sold to become a seminary. With the money, they paid all their debts and added new wings to their house in Vermont. They did it right this time with a contractor instead of just them. Maria ended her book with a gospel story of a paralytic man whose friends were so sure the Master could heal him that they lifted him through the ceiling on a litter. Their faith saved him. They wanted a special name for the family and found it in Acts, in a Latin Bible, which describes the life of the first Christians in Jerusalem. They were one heart and one soul, cor unum and anima unum. So they named their place Cor Unum, no longer the Trapp family as an entity, which made sense since the Trapp family was getting married off. Near the end of the movie, as the family sang in the festival, Georg, the stage shy, played his guitar and led the whole Austrian audience in a gentle folk song about the blessing of their Austrian flower, Edelweiss, a sweet farewell to their way of life as their Nazi invaders winced. It's on your song sheet. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright, you look happy to meet me. Blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever. I think that may have been put in there in honor of the poor soldier who got shot. We also have pictures here. If this will cooperate. Here's signal. Come, come. That's not one of the important pictures. That's my starter picture. Flowers for Patrice. We needed flowers. If you look very closely, this is a little bit of a movement. You see Julie Andrews coming forward, and in the background, notice those two people. We'll go back, and we'll go again. Watch them come in. Whoops. What happened to that? Maria insisted that she be in the movie. That was it, right there. The real Maria. That's their house in Austria. Here's the wedding. Here's the family singing and Father Vossner playing. He apparently was a super expert. He brought them up to a great level. Here they are singing. With lots of pictures. There's Georg. The family did not like the way Georg was presented as being so harsh. He was the kindest and gentlest person around. Maria was much more harsh. I'm sorry, I was so excited to be with him, I didn't hold the camera very still. Sounds a lot like A Mighty Fortress, which we've been singing all last month. Here they are singing, and Georg is in with it, with an extra little boy. And here is where Maria von Trapp teaches Julie Andrews how to yodel. Let me see. Not sure which is which. Not sure how to turn it up. And here's how they yodeled in the movie. This is an opportunity to see most of the characters in the movie. The kids, Georg, yodeling is about a whole array of different melodies against each other. In one scene, Georg played his guitar and sang Edelweiss. And so did we. That's it.